I saw footage of someone getting blown up.
Not a lot of Americans even know that the war is going on or don't know much about it, or they just reflexively say thank you.
I remember stepping outside and just, I felt like, wow, like I really feel like what I'm participating in is fucked up.
Like, if you're ashamed of what you did there, or if maybe if you're ashamed of that or you're guilty, you don't want to hear that. It's horrible. Thank you for what? That time I fucked up and a bunch of civilians died on accident? You know, why would you want to hear that?
We don't know when an IED is going to hit. We just don't know if
IEDs are killing American sons and daughters almost
Many
every
reputations are on the line as the Iraqi
Their
war
war
plays out.
experience have left some bitter and disillusioned about what they've seen and done.
You know, 51 people killed today.
And to defend the world from grave danger.
Have we lost our humanity with this entire situation?
A lot of people in my hometown joined the military. The recruiters really loved going to my school. It's just a small town. There's not a whole lot to do around there for work or school, you know, so I was an easy mark. It was easy for them to convince me to join.
I enlisted in the Army in 2003, which, incidentally, that was right after the invasion of Iraq. But why I joined had nothing to do with going to Iraq. I grew up in a culture that pushed me toward the military, but I was resistant to that. I didn't want to join. I didn't have plans to join right out of high school. I was in a band. You know, from there I went to college. I was playing in the band, and then everything went south. I started drinking too much, started partying too hard, and one night I was going to a party. I never made it to the party. I was so drunk. I went into the wrong house thinking that it was the party, and I got arrested for public intoxication and trespassing. And long story short, one of the things that got me out of trouble was to join the military. In Iraq, I didn't want to waste my time. A lot of people read books and watched movies, and I did plenty of that too, but I set up a little recording studio in a closet that was beside the radar control room and started to record music. At first, it was just something fun to do, just something to pass the time. Then I realized it started to take on political undertones. You know, it gave me a way to creatively express myself in a really shitty time. All right, so we're behind the studio right now. This right here is where I do my recording, and it's also where I live. So just follow me and I'll let you check it out. I confess, I enlisted for an honorable crime, to erase a criminal record. I pointed my rifle like a rich man's cane to direct Iraqi teens mixing concrete, slaves constructing a perimeter to block mortar shot from the dusty fields of their fathers. Teeth fell from the mouths of those curious boys who got in the way, who reached out to touch Kevlar skin, cold hands. And the same thing now happens to me when I open my mouth to speak, standing naked and bone-thin before an audience of ghosts in the worst dream of all. This is who I am. Coming to terms with the war and my part in it is going to be something that I think about for the rest of my life.
The guilt doesn't go away. It's like, I feel worse about the war now, 15 years later, because of what's happened in the long stretch of time between when I was there and today.
Did George W. Bush really happen?
Now that conflict has come, the only way to limit its duration is to apply decisive force. And I assure you, this will not be a campaign of half measures, and we will accept no outcome but victory.
The war was illegal by the standards of the U.S. Constitution, the Geneva Convention, and the UN Charter. Flat out, true statement, the war was illegal. Going off those three, which I believe in the UN Charter. I believe the Geneva Convention. I follow the U.S. Constitution. I was sworn to uphold that. It's just constantly shifting reasons for the war are not a good sign that it's, that it's right. Why do you want to be thanked for being a part of a war that has squandered $3 trillion, killed many thousands of Iraqis, thousands of U.S. soldiers, tens of thousands of injured, seriously injured U.S. soldiers, and is continuing to this day. The legacy of that is nothing that I'm proud of. 2007 in the summer, we were on the anti-war bus tour. One of the big stops was Fort Benning, and I just walked up to the gate and kind of like stuck my head around it. It was like, "Excuse me, Sergeant." He's like, "Huh?" And they both turned, and they were like instantly like, "All right, hands up, you're under arrest."
Two of our members, Liam Madden and Nate Lewis, attempted to get on base by foot to talk to the MPs who are here at the gate to ask for permission if they could go on base by foot.
And I was so pissed. You could see my face. I'm just like, oh, man. When I joined Iraq Veterans Against the War, the 3 points of unity, the demands of the organization really spoke to me at the time and still now more than ever, which is immediate and complete withdrawal of U.S. forces from Iraq, reparations to the Iraqi people, and better benefits and health care for the returning soldiers. What I felt is an offshoot of that was using the arts also to put out the anti-war message or tell my story or, help other veterans, through art and helping them tell their story, but doing it in a way that also brings into focus the larger war and the larger picture of what's going on. Within the organization, we started to get together and write about the war. And also right around the same time and almost out of that, we started making paper out of military uniforms. People approach this part of the process a bunch of different ways. Some people just take scissors and just kind of cut out single layer fabric, just get the real easy stuff, and they leave all the pockets and seams and they just kind of throw that away.
People sometimes ask, isn't this process disrespectful, or are you allowed to do this? Isn't it like cutting or burning a flag? This is a way to give the uniform, another life. You can make a piece of paper, turn that paper into artwork that can then be used to tell a story. So I don't see it as disrespectful at all.
Once the pulp is done in the Hollander beater, once it's done beating the rag, it comes in, you put it in the vat here, and you add a lot more water, mix it up, and then use the wooden frame. And that pulls, you form each sheet by hand, with the idea being that most of these will be thinner sheets for text, like for journals. I like the idea that a print could change someone's mind, or a blank journal could give someone the space or the motivation and inspiration to reflect on where they've been, what they've done, who they are in relation to the war.
Whenever people see veteran artwork, they often think that it's about healing, and I think that this has to do with depoliticizing the artwork so that then it fits into this narrative, right? Okay, the soldier goes to battle, gets traumatized, fighting for his or her country, comes home, makes art, and then is able to get better, and everybody wins in the end. It's like a happy ending. The healing the healing artwork narrative is a happy ending, but there's no happy ending here. It just, it just goes on. We deal with it, and hopefully people will listen.
Certainly writing about my experience, writing about the war, it's really great to try to make sense in your brain of what's going on, or try to make sense of your memories, or just kind of get them down so that you can at least share them. So there's parts of that I feel were helpful to me. I don't know if it's better to forget about it or try to deal with it and try to sort of, make a statement or try to fix something. I don't know. I mean, it's painful and it's frustrating and it's hard work. I don't think it's healing often, no.
It actually helps me express clearly my position on the war in Iraq, and the way the United States uses its military in general. It gives me a way to speak that holding a sign in the street and yelling doesn't.
Sometimes it's really hard to see what the efforts are, or what the work you're doing, or where all that goes. And sometimes it seems ridiculous to me to be, the United States, this massive war machine. It's still happening in Iraq. It's in Yemen. It's in Libya. Almost in Venezuela, right? So and here I am making paper out of old uniforms and binding them into books. It seems pointless. It seems frustrating. But I think I balance that with the idea that it has to add up to something, and I believe that it might inspire someone later on to do something. It might give a parent or a child pause with joining the military, or it might change someone's mind about their country or the war in general. So it's hard to see where all of this goes and what your efforts accomplish, but I have faith enough to continue to do it. So I think that's important.